Assalamualaikum and very good morning to all. Thank you, Chairperson, for welcoming us. Hi, Dr. Alvin, how are you today?
Yes, all good.
Good, yeah, okay. It's less than a month that we last see each other.
Yeah, very fast.
Okay. Yeah, good to see you then. So, a bit about the speaker today. I would like to welcome all of you to this session. We have here Dr. Alvin Yeo, which is actively involved in the industry and also community engagement at the School of Computing and Mathematical Sciences, University of Waikato, New Zealand, where he earned his Bachelor of CMS, Computing and Mathematical Sciences, and also PhD in HCI, Human-Computer Interaction. How he engages and interacts with indigenous communities was shaped by collaborating with his multidisciplinary, notably his social science and IT colleagues, community partners in Sarawak, specifically the Kelabit and Penan indigenous communities, and continues to be influenced by the local champions from the Waikato iwi. Hopefully I pronounced this right. So prior to his current stint in New Zealand, Alvin was a professor and the founding director of the Institute of Social Informatics and Technological Innovations, Universiti Malaysia, Sarawak. Alvin's current interests include community engaged learning, leveraging technology for good, and work-integrated learning. He is also our honorary member of myHCI-UX. Okay, so without further ado, can I give the floor to Dr. Alvin? Dr. Alvin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Juliana. Yeah, so firstly, I'd like to thank Dr. Zuraifa for the opportunity and also to Prof. Madia, Juliana for inviting me for this opportunity, to give me this opportunity to give a talk. Much as I would like to be in Malaysia enjoying the nasi lemak and all that, unfortunately, it's been a bit difficult with the travel and all that. But yes, it's good an opportunity for me to be able to share with you some of the experiences. So I'll just share my screen. So if you can give me a thumbs up if you can actually see this, and hold on. You can see the slides.
Yes, we can, Dr. Alvin.
Okay, cool, excellent. So so let's take a start. So now my hare mai, which means welcome in Maori to you all to my talk. And what we're going to be doing is going to go on a journey, Harenga ki Marehia, me Aotearoa, which is a journey to Malaysia and to New Zealand. And what I hope to be able to share with you are some of the projects that I had been working with my colleagues back in Malaysia and now working with my colleagues in New Zealand in areas of ICT for development. And through these lessons learned, as well as these insights gained, that, to give that, I guess, opportunity or the information for you to be able to actually possibly do such projects also in Malaysia, or wherever you are, if you are in if you are interested in this particular space. And I guess one of the areas that I want to also touch on is the community engaged learning, where students could also be involved as part of these projects. And some ideas also in terms of like moving forward. And I guess in this case, given the fact that I've been in New Zealand now about like 6 years and been working with the indigenous community here, with the Maori community, I've been fortunate enough to be able to learn a bit about their culture. And in this case, with the work that we've done in Malaysia, I've been able to see it from a different angle, I guess from the Maori lens in some sense. So, and in this case, so the first thing is, if you can see in the photo here, so you've got all these very well-dressed ladies. So this is in Barrio in Malaysia, and what they have in their hand is the pineapple, which is the, I guess probably one of the best, the juiciest pineapple that I've ever tasted in the world. And this is in terms of welcoming people going to Barrio. In this case, the Maori word is manaki tanga, which means to actually like be generous, to actually look after your guests and all that. And there are lots of similarities between the indigenous communities, both in New Zealand, Malaysia, and I guess all over the world. And hopefully with this, I'll be able to get you to just think about it and then share some, that I'll be able to share some of these insights with you. Okay, probably a bit of background about myself. Thanks to from my dear Juliana for sharing earlier. And I guess you can actually see that, yes, I've been working now close to like 28 years. And I also realized that probably those in the audience are probably less than 28 years old. So yes, I've been around a lot, and I've worked on quite a number of projects, both in Malaysia and outside Malaysia with collaborators all over the world as well. And of that time, about 20 years, I've actually spent working with indigenous communities. So this is just in case that you are not aware where New Zealand is. Sometimes New Zealand is left off the world map. So in this case, I'm actually still, I'm here at the University of Waikato over in North Island. So this is North Island. And yes, we are here. And later we are going to be mainly visiting the area that's in Sarawak. So I originally come from Kuching. And before we go into the journey into the rural jungle, it's just to say that, Kuching is a big city, has the trappings of a city, with the hotels, the McDonald's and all that. But the places that we are going to are actually kind of quite remote. And even though they are within the same state, it's sometimes quite surprising that, the infrastructure or lack of infrastructure is actually there. Probably as a start, we started the project, the eBarrio project, or my colleague started the eBarrio project with the ideas and all that. Started in 1998, 99, and the project really got started, or should I say got really implemented around like 2000, 2001. And we started in Barrio. We then later replicated to 4 other locations in both Sabah and Sarawak, and we later got funding to try to replicate this. And my colleagues from the social sciences especially have been overseeing the replication of this over in West Malaysia with the Orang Asli. And as part of it also, we've been working with various groups, and these are with Maxis, where through the funding of the USP funding that we've been able to actually work with communities all throughout these locations. The communities that we work with are wide and varied, and as you can see here, and the main 2 communities that I'm going to be talking about are the Barrio, in Barrio, the Kelabit, as well as the Penan that are in Long Lamai. And as you know, with remote communities, the way we get there, walking, taking boat, flying a small plane, and also, on logging roads, and some of it is quite challenging. Some of my colleagues who actually have gone to do this road. So now, thank goodness, that particular road, that stretch of road is now sealed, not tar sealed, but at least it's actually a proper road going through. So yes, kind of like quite challenging. On the onset, the type of projects that we looked at was mainly to look at how technology can be able to deliver sustainable and social economic development. And how we actually do it is by working with the community to set up a telecenter. So you can think of it, it's an internet center run by the community for the community. And with those, with the facilities there, the communities can actually come in and then do various projects and all that with the researchers over there. And we also wanted to see how technology could also be used to address some of the needs and the opportunities that's available in those underserved locations. So the first one, Barrio. So you can see that red dot is where Barrio is. To fly, it's quite straightforward. A small plane, 1 hour from Miri. You can now take an 18 hours logging road by 4-wheel drive. And I was told by some of the older folks that, the traditional route to the nearest town would be a few months of trekking and then going by river. Now, Barrio is they're predominantly paddy planters at that time. And about 1,000 of them were there when we started the project. So in 12 villages, there are religious community. There's no 24-hour electricity, no piped water. So what they have are what we call gravity-fed water. And they are scattered electricity provided through like small generators and all that, and no 24-hour power supply. Today, there's actually 24-hour supply provided by a huge solar grid. When we started, so this is the tele center, and as you can actually see, it's part of the shop house because we wanted a place where people do visit. Powered by genset and solar, and also at that time, telephone, computers were available. There were actually 2 locations that actually internet was provided. One was actually at the school at the talent center. And I think some of the opportunities they took was no, they did have many 4-wheel drive. So I guess some of the times they had to actually go back to the traditional way of using the kerbau to actually take the, this was, I think, taking it to the school. And in terms of the impact, so education, obviously with the school, primary school kids and secondary school kids being able to actually use internet. This is around 2000, 2001, even in the city, the students there wouldn't actually be able to use the internet. So here we are, those who are in the remote community were able to actually access it. The group of people that really, I think, came on board was the lodge holders, because they were using this technology to communicate with their clients. And you can actually see, the graph actually shows the number of visitors actually taking off after the telecenter actually came in. And there was actually people who are from the urban areas moving back to Barrio because of the opportunities. And in this case, things like tracking, what's it called, tour groups tracking, going to visit the wildlife, go fishing, look at birds and all that. All this thing actually came about as well because of people that came in were actually interested in going to see, basically going to the forest to actually see the wildlife. And of course, there'll be entertainment and all this stuff. And one of the things that really struck me was, that they were also training the young ones in terms of doing the traditional dances. So, all this entertainment and all that was actually available as well. A good example where this technology really impacted. So this is Stephen Bayap. He was the resident artist in Hilton in Kuching. He went back to Barrio and still continued painting, and then there is livelihood out of a homestay. So you could actually go there, stay there, and then you were interested in paintings or buy his paintings. And when I talked to him, he said one of the reasons that he was able to actually go back to Barrio and to earn a living as well was mainly because of the internet. Because prior to that, if you were sending a letter from Barrio or going out by the normal post, it could take about 3 to 6 months before the letter arrives. So with the internet, you can actually organize quite a lot of things much easier. And I think one of the other things that they tacked upon was that the community decided, hey, we could actually do festivals. So in this case, this is Pestan Nukunan, which is the slow food festival. They will get people to come in to sample the food. So, with more people coming in, there's the opportunity for revenue earning and all that. We also work with the community to do the eBarrio Knowledge Fair. So this was an idea from Roger Harris, the father of eBarrio, that he actually came up with the idea that, people, conferences, present papers, but not just the normal presentation of papers, but also providing in a way to actually that's I guess be digestible by the community, because some of the quite a number of the papers that are presented there are actually for the community. And with the eBarrio project, I think one of the things was, it helped to create a ripple of other projects as well. And I'm just bringing to your attention 2 particular projects. One was the Sustainable Virtual Telecenter. This is Tan Chong Eng. And he found that, well, with the telecenter, it's kind of expensive, with one, the VSAT, basically that satellite technology there. In order to actually reach out to all the villages, as you can see in the red circles all over. So he came up with this virtual telecenter, which actually has implemented trial in Barrio, and then now it's actually working over in West Malaysia with the Orang Asli. Now the other picture, it seems like innocuous a picture. So you got 2 persons, so that's Fitri and then Tan. So they are actually in Barrio, and the rest of us are in Miri. What has happened is that we were working with a technology company over in Japan, and they wanted to determine whether, in this case, fiber optic could actually be used over in the rural area. So both Tan and Fitri are in the primary school. They are actually connected about a few kilometers of fiber optic to the telecenter. It's the transmission is beamed up to the satellite up in the sky or in space, down to Wangsa Maju, if I'm not mistaken, over in Kuala Lumpur or in West Malaysia, and then through an underwater cable, bringing that transmission across to Miri. So you can imagine that quite a fair distance, and basically the lag time was only about like 4 to 6 seconds when we actually did that. But basically that what we were able to actually attend the opening and then also see the activities that was actually carried out over in Barrio. And in this case, the Japanese were happy because they could actually see that the fiber optic technology could actually be used in rural areas, whereby the source and the destination will be the only two locations that you will require power, and you have the transmission across the 2 points without needing without needing power. So that was Barrio. Now we go to Long Lamai, and that's Long Lamai, also close to the Indonesian border. And to get there, you fly to Long Banga Airport. You can actually see the airstrip that's there. Then you take the boat about 2 hours. The other way is a 5-hour 4-wheel drive, and you end up in Lompoak, and then you take about an hour boat ride upriver. There is actually a path across, which is about an hour, the locals, but then you'll probably take, I guess, us, the non-locals, probably 2 to 3 hours across. I've always been the one that's trying to go the shortest path, but in this case, the shortest path is the longest route by the boat. Now, so the community that's in Long Lamai are Penan, and they are also Christian community. Again, also no electricity, there's no pipe water, there's not even a health clinic. The closest one, if I'm not mistaken, might be in Long Banga. The telecenter was actually set up about 2009, but we approached them about 2007 in terms of like talking to them and then to see whether they were willing to work with us in terms of like having that project over there. The Penan were nomadic, but now they have actually settled. There are some of the older folks are still walking around in the forest as well as continuing their traditional part of life. Again, the same thing with the telecenter. You have the power by solar panels, and then also basically with solar in this case. And in over there also the opportunity providing telephone, because at that point in time, if they needed to make a phone call, I think they still have to go to Long or Long Banga to actually make like the phone call. So when this thing came in, they were able to instantaneously make the phone call. What Garan Jingan, who is the telecenter manager there, said was that if you do not know about plants, you are not a Penan. And because the community, or should I say the Penan community, they were previously nomadic and they were in the jungle, but now they are settled. And what they've actually found that some of the younger generation do not know as much about the about plants. So this is where the eToro project came in, and basically one of the ideas was to do a Toro where the family would bring their kids over to go into the jungle, and they'll set up things like a hut. The women will go about the activities like the cooking, collecting plants and all that, whereas the boy would go with the father to go hunting and all that. So think of it as like activity-based learning, that you actually do the activity to actually learn. Now, in order for this to actually happen, lots of knowledge is actually being passed on. Now, with the younger ones, I guess there's less motivation to do all this. So they're interested in technology, and that's where we thought, okay, how is it that the older folks will be able to pass down some of this plant information and all that to the younger ones? So the idea was to actually see, okay, let's see whether we can come up with a system. And this is work with done by Tarek Zaman, whom I think is going to be speaking later. So if there are opportunity, you might be able to actually ask him in more detail about this. And basically the idea was, you know, to have that indigenous botanical knowledge that's actually captured somehow. And here we actually have the solution whereby, you know, the older folks and the young folks, they are doing basically, you know, looking at like the design in this case. So you can actually see that, yes, you have the writing in Penan, but then you also have, and because I guess the younger ones tend to be more technology savvy, so you can see that, you know, they're putting things like the checkbox, the text, the date, and all that stuff. They already are aware of this sort of things. And here you can actually have that already, that sharing of knowledge at the very beginning. So in terms of the implementation, they actually developed the thing and then got the users, the young ones, as well the older ones. So the capturing of the information, of course, was by the older ones, and then the young ones were the ones that are picking up the knowledge, and then they had the discussion and through basically through that reflection. And basically this particular process, which we are, as you can actually see, really involves the users, you know, from like, you know, getting the consent from them, looking what the needs are, you know, identify that there's a problem, and then both sides agree that this is an issue to be able to look at, and then through the solution. So they very much so that all this actually does involve the community, as I think what Dr. Zrafa was saying, that, you know, looking at solutions that are actually appropriate, in this case, really working closely with the community. Another project I'd like to highlight is the oral tangibles. Now, because the community were nomadic, so there will be when they are going to the jungle, they'll be leaving signs for the rest of the group when they're following to actually be able to know what's actually happening ahead. And my understanding is that usually before they go from one location to another, they will actually have the young one, the men and all that going ahead as the first party, and then later on the family will come along. And if you think about it, they were already doing sustainable living because they would stay in an area for a certain period of time, and then they'll move on, and then the other place will allow time to actually grow. So they'll go through this cycle. But now, well, basically, they've actually settled in Long Lamai. So in this case, so, you know, using this as an example, so the message here is I have left 100 ball, 100 ball for you in this direction. So the ball is reflected in this particular leaf, and then you got the dart, because they used a lot of blowpipes to actually kill the animal. So in this case, so I guess with the stick pointing there, they'll say I've left something in this particular direction. Now, what they actually found as part of the research was that the older folks know a lot of the signs, but not the younger ones. And in order for them to be able to try to find out a way to actually do so. So in this case, what was done was they actually use what they call tangible objects. So these are felt tips. And this is like, I guess, a small board, and then you actually assemble it. So each of these artifacts, in this case, like the dart is actually on top of there. So there are, in this case, 3 components: the stick, the plant, the leaf, as well as the, the dart. So in which case you have all of this there. So when you actually take each of this artifact and then you press it onto the iPad, it's actually creating that particular object on the iPad. And what you're doing is allowing the younger ones to be able to learn about the science on the iPad using the tangibles that's actually being created. So they actually created quite a few of them. And as part of the research study, they found that there was actually an increase in the knowledge of this particular sign language. So in terms of the impact, besides the project that was actually done, of course, connectivity, because of the opportunity that, hey, you know, you can actually call your family who are actually outside. But then also, again, tourism was one of the things that actually picked up. They've got more boats as well. Handicrafts, one of my colleagues over at Unimas worked with the community, and they started making these handicrafts, and they actually managed to sell some of these handicrafts via Facebook. So again, opportunities to use technology to actually deliver socioeconomic benefits. Of course, you have the the lodges, and some of them would be creating like tours that you bring it into the jungle, and then you be actually to sample the food that's actually there. Now, one of the things is also one of the things was they actually have this this poison. So it's from this tajam tree. So with that poison, that's how they actually put it at the end of the dart, and then they can actually kill animals with that. So from what I've heard from them, they say that poison is enough, can actually kill people, but they have the antidote, but then the antidote they're probably only keeping within the village and not telling the people outside. Let's see. Okay, I guess an interesting story is that, as I mentioned, the Penans are nomadic people, so they live on land. Now they're actually now living by river, and they found that, hey, the transport by river is also quite good. So what Wilson told me was that earlier on, when they started driving the boats, or using the boats, there was a lot of like capsized boats and all that. But now that 2-hour boat ride, there are rapids, and there are certain parts I still remember whereby, as you're going upriver, there are like boulders there, because when it's actually when there's dry season, less water, so the boulders are there, and you can actually, it's kind of amazing that they are actually able to navigate the longboat going up. So the big satellite dish was also transported by the longboat, and so they have actually adapted to the new lifestyle in that sense. So I think one of the coolest thing about this, this was reported by Tarek in one of his papers, that the Penans previously were seen as a backward group. They were against progress because some of them would going for the logging, so they did not accept the compensation and all that. So they said, no, we don't want that. But because the fact that, especially like with the Penans now working with with Tarek, so I guess in this particular these papers, they've actually won some awards, and it's quite cool to see that the Penans who are now who were not previously seen as backward, but now are actually seen as being more modern, because they are now using technology, but they're also participating in world-class research. So now, after Malaysia, now we are actually going to Aotearoa, New Zealand. And this is a project that we started working with the Whakatohia iwi, which is approximately, I think, in 2000. And we started working with them on other things in 2016. And this project more or less really got started around 2019. Now, the red dot there is where this particular community is from, Opotiki. And luckily for me this time, in order to get there, I don't have to fly, I don't have to go on a boat, I don't have to walk. It's a 3-hour drive. And I can tell you that I actually enjoyed the drive going there, because it's a beautiful scenery, but it's just straight 3 hours getting there. The Whakatohia, they're a tribe, a Maori tribe, and they comprise of 6 hapu, or 6 sub-tribes, and they've got 15,000 registered members. Quite a few of them are outside, living outside Opotiki. Very similar things as well, rural-urban migration in this case. But one thing going for them was that, very, in the 1800s, as you can see, Danny Paruru, who's our contact there, was saying that, over that particular location, they're very fertile land, and there was lots of growth and lots of opportunities, but unfortunately colonization happened and their land was confiscated. So, they are still going through that settlement process, but I think in the 50s, I think there was some compensation that was actually given to them. Oh yes, and how the indigenous community, or how the Maori actually identify where you're from, is actually through the waka, which is like the boats. Can think of like a boat where they come from. So the families that came from one particular waka, one particular boat, were considered descendants of that particular person, and then when they come together, usually the names are associated with the name of one of the tupuna, or one of the ancestors. So with the Whakatohia Maori Trust Board, they got started looking after the funding, and they're doing various projects and all that. So I think one of the cool things about them is that they've been running, I think, since 1952, if I'm not mistaken, this trust board. So their vision, Kote Kai Hoki I Waiawa, which is to be the football that feeds the world, because remember, they were quite fertile, and they are still they are now getting there in that sense. And if you look at their purpose, kia rangitira ai uri o Whakatohia, which is to invest in the well-being of the people, and then to increase also in terms of investing in terms of the people, but also in terms of their prosperity as well. And we started working with them. So we did help them set up this telecenter, but they actually have their own digitech, because one of the aspirations that they have was to ensure that the tamariki and the rangatahi, the children as well as the youth, are actually involved or being exposed to technology, and that's why some of the projects are actually working with them. And that's, you know, this youth and the young ones, they are able to actually pick up the technology and being able to actually move forward and future careers in IT, because they do understand that, there's opportunities out there in this particular space. So with the Waikato app, so how this happened was in 2019, myself and Anika, one of my colleagues over here, went to went to Opotiki. And because Anika had been doing a location-based mobile research, and then she showed them what are the things that they were done. And then at that point in time, Danny and Anita were there, and they said, it'd be quite cool to actually capture the Waikato. So Waikato is traditional songs, chants, lullabies, and these are mainly used to communicate and preserve cultural and historical teachings. And again, predominantly the older generations know this. And even just recently, there was someone actually had passed away, and with that, some of this knowledge actually, has gone. So with Anita, she's also with the Research and Archive Trust, and they actually looked at how they can actually capture this Waikato, and they present it, in this case, with the app. So you actually have, in this case, this design actually came from a community member, and they collected the different Waikato, the different songs. They had the Maori, plus also the English translation of the lyrics. They also have information about the authors, and also providing other information about the stories behind this, as well as, I guess, the learnings and all that associated with it. And one of the things that one of the Anika's research was in terms of how do we provide technology such that the community can actually, in this case, providing the knowledge without burdening them, or without the ICT being a barrier for them. So there's this tipple, and this is the interface, and through the discussion that tipple interface is where the community put in the information, and then there's a backend that runs from the interface, and then both comes out the Android as well as the Apple app. And then that could be actually downloaded. So at the end, the project was launched in 2020 with the Waikato app and the dashboard as part of the outcomes. They've got now 30 plus Waikato. Data sovereignty is very important, or data protection. So in which case, 3 are public that people can actually see and can share. The next step is actually to incorporate things like video with the actions of the people singing, and as well as doing the actions and then putting it in. And again, a cool story. This was related to me by Anita, who's saying that they had to go to the marae, which is I guess the traditional meeting place for the Maori, and there are some, when someone gives up a speech, it's always followed by Waikato to support the speaker. And Anita was saying it was quite cool to say that some of the kuya, some of the older ladies was taking out the mobile phone and then looking through to see which are the Waikato they can actually use to actually sing. So, because this thing is very much driven by the community, that these are things that they are actually continue to use. And we are trying to actually collect more of this Waikato to actually put into the app. So reflecting back on all the things that's been done, and I do realize that there was a lot of similarities in terms of the project working with the indigenous communities. And these are some of the, what I would call the critical success factors, things that you probably would need to look at if you are wanting to embark on this type of projects. So the first one is relating to relationships. So the Maori word is whanaungatanga, which is relationships. And then to make relationship is whakawhanaungatanga, the establishing of relationship. And they have actually a word for this because relationships are very important to them. So in this case, we have built quite a strong relationship now with the Whakatohea iwi, and there's that trust that's been built over these years with us delivering what we say, and then they've been very good in terms of working with us, and they'll be very open in terms of sharing the information with us as well to ensure that the project actually goes forward. And as part of this relationship, we have identified people who we call local champions. So in this case, for Barrio, this is John Trawe. He's the telecenter manager at that time, so he's done many other things. He's now a counselor. But he's been with us all throughout the various projects that we did. This is the Pemancha, who is the paramount chief over in Barrio. And the lady here is Lucy Bulan, who was one of the principal, who was a secondary school principal when the project actually started. So these are the key people that command a lot of respect, and they are the ones that that were able to actually help with the community as well. The other one is in Lamai, we have Wilson Biabalare, who is the headman, and also in this case, Garan Jangan. He was a retired government servant who actually had gone back to Long Lamai. And I mean, as I say, the Penans are quite wise. There was a saying, just talking to Wilson, I think every time I see him, it reminds me of this saying that he says, biar pengemis di hutan, jangan jadi pengemis di kaki lima. The reason was because a lot of people had left Long Lamai and gone to the town. But then if you think about it, right, if you're actually pengemis, a beggar, in Long Lamai, you can still feed yourself because you're in the jungle. This is your home. You can actually still, get and live and all that. But if you become pengemis di kaki lima, you don't have much, and that's why, that's one of the things that I think they actually pass on to the younger ones who are actually thinking about going out as well. And so that's actually Long Lamai. Garan has been doing a lot of project work together with Tarek, and yeah, there's a paper that actually written as part of the Fusion conference. So over there you'll be able to actually identify the references and be able to actually get some of the information of the words that's there. Last but not least, Anita, who's with the Research Archive Trust, as well as Danny Paruru, who is the iwi Development Manager for the Whakatohia Maori Trust Board. So these are the people that we work closely with, and basically what we also realize is before I go to the next slide, I think I also like to acknowledge there are those people who introduce us to the community. So in this case, one of the key persons was Pauline Bala, who was also a researcher, now associate professor, Pauline Bala. She was a researcher with the social science over at UNIMAS, and she was one who actually played a key player in that as well, because she was actually from the village and then worked very closely with the project as well as with the community. Over with the Long Lamai, we had Dr. John Pua. He was also a researcher in social science, had built a relationship with them and provided that connection going into the community. And for Whakatohia, it was Maui Hudson, who is he's now the director of a research institute over at Waikato University, and he was the one that introduced me to Danny in 2016. Now, these people play a key role is because they are like the gatekeeper. They're just to ensure that people coming into the community are people who would be able to actually assist and help and not create havoc and all that stuff as well. So going back to the researchers, the students, the people who are working in the projects, all of this, I guess in some sense we were blessed that quite a lot of them were already culturally competent, or they actually observed the social scientists working with the community. And one of the interesting things was, as we were doing this particular paper, we perchance on, this is the guiding principles for Maori researchers by Linda Smith in decolonizing methodologies. So she had actually identified these principles, and when I look at those principles, I realized that, hey, they're not only working with the Maori, but then also with indigenous communities, even with the one that's over in Malaysia. So I give you some examples. So let's say, for example, the first one, which is Aroha Kite Tangata, respect for the people, that we should accept and then respect each other's opinion, because each of us, whether you're from the university or from the community, have respective knowledge, are experts in various things. I guess one way to flip it is, sometimes, people from rural areas that come to the city and then, think, they're from the rural area, they don't know anything, right? I always tell people that imagine if you were in the jungle, you also would be out, you'll be also lost. And even worst case scenario, you might be bitten by a snake or eaten by a wild animal, right? So in this case, everybody actually has expertise and knowledge, and then we should actually respect this. And with this particular trust of these commitments and all that between the two, then you'll be able to resolve conflicts, be able to manage expectations between the two. The second one I'd like to touch on is the Kanohi Kitia, the scene phase. And we do spend time visiting the community, and it does take time. Over in Barrio, I was informed at that time that, when you actually go to the community, if people see you and they know that you've been around and all that, so they will see you as someone that they know as opposed to a stranger. And if, let's say, you are going to ask for collaboration or to work with them, they will work with somebody they would know as opposed to a stranger that just pop up. The last one I like to talk to is Titiro, Whakarongo, Korero, which is observe, listen before speaking. This one I can apply back when we first started in the eBaru project. When we first arrived, and there were quite a few, first few trips, every time when we arrive, we thought, oh, we go straight and then get work done, right? But I always see, why is it that some of these social scientists, they keep on going to minum kopi saja, go to the coffee shop and then just drink coffee with the community. They were thinking, they're not doing their work until I observed and I listened and I found out that when they're actually drinking coffee, they are actually catching up on the latest news. So they know who has passed, who has not, who you can see, and so on and so forth. And these are some of the things that, when you're actually doing this type of projects, that you need to go in and you need to listen. And I guess the last one is the seventh one that I like. Be humble. People say, you're from the university, you know a lot. So yes, within the context of the university. But when you step into the realm of the indigenous community, they are the experts. So sometimes when you go in, you may have to take a back seat to actually realize that you do not know everything. And then you have to be kia manaki, which is be humble. Mentioned as well earlier on that community needs come first. And if you think about it, this is a very user-centered design. User involvement, again, very much user-centered, because with participatory design, co-design, you are actually working with the community, with the users, except that these users are much more involved than just, you're getting information or evaluation, usually test results from them, but they are actually part of the project in terms of like designing and then moving forward. This is, I guess, for those of you who are in research. So I have been very lucky that in UNIMAS, as well as the University of Waikato, that they are supportive of the work that I actually do. Most of the, as you academics know that, for promotions, it's projects, it's writing papers, it's the publications, the citations that actually get things going. So in this case, I'm sad to say that you are still doing this. If you are wanting to do this project, you still have to think about the academic research side of things in terms of publication. And there are publications out there which are high impact, but probably in the space that you can actually publish to. And then one of the example is the Electronic Journal of Information Systems in developing countries. And I think it has some impact factor, but it's also considered as, basically it's also considered as a reputable journal. So you still have to do that research, but try to find ways whereby you can actually incorporate what you're actually doing, but ticking the boxes of the academic side, but also on the socio-economic benefits. So I guess in this case, for the Waiata app, we managed to do a publication from it. And this was from Anika, who was saying that, we can actually get all this and write it up. And we managed to actually do that together with another paper with the Fijian indigenous community as well. So, it is actually possible, but then again, just ensuring that whatever that you're publishing is actually given the okay, by the support. Because if you take that into account and you look after the university will also look after you. As you would say, inshallah. Last one. I guess the last item is the community engaged learning. So I guess I'm quite passionate about this is because these are things that I'm also doing. So I look after a paper called Preparing the Students for the Internship. And as part of that particular paper, the students have to work on a project. They do the requirements, they do a first prototype and a final prototype. And what they do is they work with the external client, in this case, the community partner, and they also work on a problem that's actually of concern to the community. So in this case, the current one that they're actually looking at is called the Whakapapa app. It's about the genealogy because the community are very interested in wanting to actually ensure that they know the connections and all that. So the community are the ones that came up with the this is a concern of them. The students are working with them. They are being accessed. They are being evaluated in that particular paper. And the students are working in the IT space as well. So this is the community engaged learning that we think it's a good way to actually involve community, but also have the students involved. And the benefits are, of course, the students, they'll be able to apply their skills, but then you'll be able to apply, the 4 C's, the collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity skills onto the projects. Quite a lot of the students that I have are international students, so this is an opportunity for them to visit Opotiki. And in this case, one of the photos, you can see that we actually visit one of the marae. So the students actually feedback, they say, they learn quite a lot, not only about the technology being used, but also the environment. So this is the Te Ao Maori, the Maori world. Okay, and providing that the opportunity to learn about a different culture, but then also be able to get that different perspective as well. And all this is actually, what the project is actually doing good. It is actually creating that good citizenship. So we group all this is under what we call the technology for group, technology for good type projects, or Hangarau Mote Ora. And moving forward, relationships are ongoing, and I still keep in touch with people like John Trawe with the usual WhatsApp and all that. You do also remember with the projects that's ongoing that the project done well has ripple effects. And in this case, the Waiata was one of the projects. There's also the digital library project. We also got a Takuhiko and the Whakapapa project coming also with that particular community. So work well on that first project, and with that trust and relationship built, you are able to actually extend and get more in that sense. And I guess for those practitioners, those in the companies and all that, there's an opportunity for them to come in to be mentors to the students, even to be involved in the engagement and also in the as collaborators with the researchers in this case. And this is a good opportunity for for everybody to work together to be able to to move forward. And basically this is a summary slide that yes, with the indigenous communities, you can actually help social as well as the economic benefit side. With the university, yes, capacity building, because with researchers coming in, you're building their skill sets, the new knowledge with the publications, and then creating the new opportunities for projects and so on and so forth. But working with the different stakeholders and different groups, and I guess with the industry in that sense that there's that opportunity to work together for for good. But in this case, providing the expertise and that training. And so technology for good. Hopefully I've given you some, I guess, insights into the different projects that's actually out there and how we can actually work with them, and also give you a bit of motivation to say that it can actually be done. And it's actually quite good fun as well, that everybody can play a part, whether you're from the university or from industry, from the government. And where we have students involved in the community engaged learning, there's that opportunity, that the students are being developed in terms of their talent. And with this case, what we hope at the end, as a product outcome is that that the students are what we call socially responsible global citizens. So a couple of quotes lastly. We can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. And I found that this was actually spoken by or this was a quote by Ronald Reagan. But it is true that, yes, you cannot help everybody. You can actually help somebody. Same thing, you can help a community. And then if everybody helps the community, chances are everybody will be able to help someone. And the last one is Nata Roro, Na Taku Roro Ka Ora Ai Te Wiwi, which means to say, with your food basket and my food basket, the people will thrive. With your resources, your knowledge, your expertise, and mine together, when we group together, we can actually work together to actually build a better world. So thank you to the Barrio Long Lamai and the Pakatohia community. Also to the local champions, and also the support from my former colleagues and my former bosses over at Unimas, and also to the current one with the School of Computing and Mathematical Sciences at the University of Waikato, New Zealand. And thank you very much. Ngā tō koutou patai, which means any questions?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Alvin. That would be very, very inspiring work of yours. Terima kasih Ngami. And then I think we have I pick up one or two words from what we when we are there in New Zealand.
Hi, excellent.
So I think we have 10 more minutes for Q&A since we start a bit late just now. We have a few questions in the chat. But before we take the questions, thank you so much, Dr. Alvin, for sharing. I remember the critical success factors that you mentioned. It's like what we have here in Malay, masuk kandang kambing mengembek, masuk kandang harimau mengaum, something like that.
Yes.
All right, so let's take one question from the participants from the floor. So we have here Katriza. Thank you, Dr. Alvin, such interesting work. So comparing both communities in Sarawak and also New Zealand, how is actually their reception, their acceptance towards the project conducted? And I guess also you have mentioned about some of the projects, future projects with other rural communities. Probably want to highlight these to the audience as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So I guess in terms of the acceptance, that's why it's quite crucial that when someone does introduce you in, or if you're working with them, I think you do need to spend that time to get to know the other party rather than just going straight into the project. And it's true, that's why it's called the whakawhanaungatanga, that building that relationship. Once you actually build that relationship and then you actually are able to understand each other and also being able to understand what their problems, what their issues are and all that, it is likely that if you're actually focusing on the problem that they are facing, it will be highly accepted. You know, that's the reason why in HCI, we talk about the user-centered design, because we are trying to deliver, I guess, try to address the goals or the challenges of that specific users, in this specific context. And once you actually are able to talk to them and understand what their problems are, I think there was someone who actually said, you should ask why. Why is it that you're wanting this? Ask the 5 whys. And then once you actually knuckle down to what the actual problem is, then you'll be able to actually say, then let's look at the solutions that's actually coming up. So as long as you are working with the community, as long as you're communicating well with them, and there is that to and fro communication, the chances of acceptance is going to be quite high. And things like with the Waikato project, and then even with the e-barrio project earlier on, they knew that it was actually important for their existence. In terms of our future projects as well, again, sorry, Juliana, could you repeat the second part of the question in terms of the future projects?
It's just that is there any future project with other rural communities? Because we have seen that you're working with Penang Malays, Waikato Kaiwi, Waikato Hiaiwi. So is there any more?
Yeah, so one of the things I've learned is this what they call the Pareto rule, 90%, 10%. So at the moment, my 90% of the effort is into 10%. So in this case, all my effort is in this particular EV, because there's actually in this university, or should I say in this particular faculty, there's about 5 of us who are actually really interested in working in this particular project. So we can't really expand. However, the community that we're working with, Whakatoria iwi, they were saying that we are happy to actually share our knowledge with other iwis. So funnily enough, next month we are going to be visiting another community as well. And that particular community was through, again, an introduction by someone who's actually there. And what we're hoping is to be able to, like a cookie cutter, we done the Waikato app on this site already. When we go to this particular community, if Waikato is something that they're interested in capturing, we already have got the best practice in some sense to actually go for, or the methodology to be able to actually go forward with it as well. But one of the things that I also realized is that there, you have to have a balance. You cannot do everything. So that's the reason why predominantly we're just focusing on that particular EV. We're happy to share the knowledge, and people like Danny and Anita, they've actually done quite a few presentations with Anika in conferences and all that as well. And even with this particular conference, I asked permission also from Nara, from the Institute at Unimas, but also from Danny to say that, hey, is it okay if I actually present the work that we've done? And yeah, they're happy to do that. So this sharing hopefully will help other community as well. So over in Malaysia, jangan khawatir, there are people I know in Unimas, and also Tarek would probably know. I think service learning is the umbrella. I think that, the Malaysian education blueprint, if I'm not mistaken, they have that service learning, right? So I know Tarek has also been doing that, and then also working in the community. He might be able to point out to you who are the other people who are actually doing it with the indigenous community as well. But the other thing I also want to mention is that, don't only just work with the indigenous community, jangan paksa, okay, to actually do that. You can also work with other communities around you, who may be actually needing so ultimately it's trying to find, it's a bit like trying to find the jodoh, right? You have to actually find the right partner, because this is a long-lasting relationship, okay? And that's the reason why you need to actually, not get to know them better, and then understand whether both sides are agreeable to moving forward as well. And once that happens, then things are a bit easier. Is there any questions?
Yeah, okay. So probably we can take one more question, MC and also Dr. Alvin. So basically, there are from Nurul Ibrahim here, there are several similarities between indigenous. Most of the time, they are very protective of the culture. So, so far, in your opinion, how well do you see that them embrace the emergence of technology?
Okay.
And also how researchers can tolerate and blend between the technology and also culture? Yeah.
So I guess the data is a big issue, especially in New Zealand. And I think it's partly because, with the issues of colonization, and, there's always been researchers coming in, working with the community, and then just taking, and then not giving back to the community. And data is one of them as well. And that's why people are always afraid. And that's the reason why you need to build that trust. So with the Whakatohea iwi, they know that the things that they will share with us, we are not going to use it, publish papers, and then disseminate it all over the world. They know that we will be careful with the knowledge that they actually provided to us. And that's the reason why, if you look at it, they actually said, okay, 3 of the Waiata, they can put in public, 30, they will keep, because those are the things that are important to them as well. So in this case, ultimately, some communities are more open than others. In this case, one of the things that could actually be done is, especially when you're researchers, you're wanting to publish and all that, what is important to them usually is the data. And chances are what is of interest to you is the publication. There is sometimes that you can actually work some sort of like compromise that you can publish about the methodology, the approach that you actually take, without actually, exposing the data that's actually being used. And that could be, I guess, a good compromise as well. And I think that's the reason why, when you're actually talking to them as well, have an understanding that, what are the things that, they are okay to be published and not okay to be published. Because without that, halfway down the track, after you invested all the time, they say, oh, these are something we don't want to actually put out to the world. Then you're stuck, right? So that's why I have that conversation earlier as well, in terms of what can or cannot actually be, what can or cannot be actually shared as well. And again, sorry, the second part of the question, I only got the first part of the question.
Okay, how basically as researchers, right? So normally we come with the technology. So how we can tolerate between this technology and also the culture that basically possessed with these tribe and so on?
Okay, so actually that's a good question now. So I give you this in terms of a story. there is a community in Sarawak which are with a failed telecenter. The telecenter tak jalan. Main reason is because this was a top-down. The person wanted the telecenter to be there because he saw how successful Barrio was. But then we didn't build that relationship. We didn't understand what were their needs and all that stuff and so on. So there were other issues as well. But because you actually have that telecenter that's there, nobody is usually using it because they don't know about it. They don't know what are the things that can be done with it and so on and so forth. And I guess it goes back again goes back to the very beginning that you should be talking to the person just to ensure that this technology is something that they want. So I know that I was a researcher once that you have built this. How can it be used? You don't paksa. Jangan paksa. What you do is like what Adika had done was, she said that these are the technology that's been used in these different contexts. Looking from your side, what are the problems that you think some of this technology can be used? So therefore, what you're doing is trying to see how that technology actually fits. There are times, it's just like, boyfriend, girlfriend, sometimes tak kena kan. So sometimes when you actually have a tool or the technology, it just is tak ngam with the community. Don't paksa, because then that's time to move on to another community. So always be careful, because if you're addressing what the community wants with the technology that you have, great. But if you have the technology that the community does not want, and then they just take because they feel segan not to say no, then there will be problems later on as well. I think one of the best ways that you know that your community is really trusting you and also you are able to communicate well is when they can say no. Because if they're there to say no to you, then of course they say in a nice way, oh, Alvin, I think in this case, this one might not be that appropriate. So you know that they're saying no to you, because there are some community, because segan kan, oh, you from university, whatever you say must be good. They just, they giving them the technology and they just diam, senyum, say, yeah. But actually, dalam hati tu, it's actually not really what they're actually wanting to do. So build that relationship, really understand what their issue, what their problem is. And then if you have doing various projects, provide it to them. And sometimes it might be an idea that's actually coming from them. So say, for example, virtual reality. I know probably Juliana, you're into the virtual reality, mixed reality, right? So just recently, we just had a workshop with, these are the young, I guess, what they call Form 4, Form 5, Form 6, lower 6, upper 6 students, to actually get them to be exposed to technology. So one of the guys who are actually doing this, they use a VR to help to actually get the students to create the marae, to build the marae virtually. And while they're building the marae, they actually teach them what are the different parts of the marae, And in this case, you can see that the technology is already there, the VR is there, but there is a sense of how you're using the technology. And some of the kids really enjoy, not only because it's technology, but they are also learning about their culture. So, there are many ways that you can actually do this. And ultimately, again, it's like our HCI, user-centered approach, users first, in terms of thinking what are their needs, what are their problems. And then therefore, will be acceptance, the usability and all that will be more likely to be good.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Alvin. Yeah, we can also take, can we take another 2 questions, Dr. Alvin?
Can.
Yeah, because organizer says that we have time to take more question. So this is from Chai Ang Tan. So thank you for your wonderful sharing, Doctor. As a researcher, did you go in to engage the community with a research question, or did the community find you to solve their problems?
Yeah.
Which way?
So it could be both ways, but usually is that when you go to the community and talking to them, it is likely that the problems that they tell you, you may already have solutions. Okay. So say, for example, like the eToro project that I was talking about, the one that Tarek was doing in terms of capturing the plant information. Okay. So there is that problem. Tarek knows that there are probably a number of ways to actually solve it. okay? And they were able to actually come to an idea of how we can work together to actually deliver that particular solution, okay? So usually when you go in, sometimes you may have a research question. I can't really think, well, in this case, the research question for us was basically how can technology help to address the challenges of the community, right? And then it's always going back to the community. What is it that they're actually facing that your technology can help them? So I know, as I mentioned just now, you have different solutions. You also have different research questions. Sometimes some of these research questions, you can actually go to the community and say, okay, of course, put it in such a way that they understand, and then find out what are the things that they seem to be able to actually work with you. Okay. I put it another way, another cerita. It's like, wow, budget cerita ni. So when we were doing the e-Barrio Knowledge Fair, one of the things that was done was that we were not presenting papers to the community because after 20 minutes, everybody, I think, tidur already in that sense. So it was done the other way, that there were a number of technologies that was provided to them, presented in 5 minutes to the community. And then the community voted in terms of how they would like what technology. So they actually, each one, I think, got about 3 votes, I think, in terms of paper and all that. And then I think there was about 30 or 40 of the community members that were there. So one of it, I remember the winner was the e-wallet. Because over rural areas, there's no ATM, can't. But they want to transfer money between people and all that. So the e-wallet, perfect solution. So they had a number of solutions that was out there, and then the community voted on which of this project that they wanted to go forward. So the community spoke in terms of like the votes are there, by undi in that sense. Again, you can see that solutions are there. Problems might be, from our side are there. Ultimately, it is seeing how you can actually, with the community, be able to do that so-called connection. And yeah, so I think that's probably the way to go about it in that sense. And then when you go to a community, as I mentioned, ideally it should be someone introducing this, because in the university, everybody come together, more or less by the first, second meeting, things will jalan already. When you're working with the community, the first one is actually just to meet up, to understand, to talk to them. Only later on, a bit down the track, then to see whether some of these projects. So it can take a bit longer in terms of the investment, but I don't know. I mean, for me anyway, it is quite a good opportunity that you can do what they call do some good, that you can actually get some benefit out of it. So that's, I guess, that satisfaction in that sense. You don't become millionaire because
Yes.
I'm still working.
Yeah. There's no millionaire in academician if you are really, really into societies.
Unless you keluar and then you become some new technology that you're actually developing, that's possible.
There is another one.
Yep.
I guess this is because this is very, very academic.
Yep, no worries.
Yes.
I fully understand.
Yeah, because it's related to the papers,
Yeah.
So because some of the academic research with the community projects normally very difficult to produce a paper.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is from Rohaya Latif. So
yeah.
How did you overcome this? How do you
Yeah.
find things to write in papers and so on?
Yeah, so I guess, again, 2 ways. So this is not the, I still remember this is the how to get your PhD or how not to get your PhD. One of the ways was you do the exploratory approach. You do, and if some of this can be actually written up. That's a bit dangerous, but sometimes you may have to do that. So I do, yes, it is true that it is actually quite difficult to be able to actually publish some of this. I think ultimately it's like when you're actually have an idea of maybe some of the possible journals that you might want to get into. So say, for example, the project that we managed to report on for the latest journal was on the work integrated learning. And that one, actually, we did not have it in mind. That when we were actually doing when we actually sat down and Anika was saying that, oh no, we should actually write this up. And then we realized that that particular conference that we presented also had like a journal and so, and that's why we worked getting that publication for that particular journal. Now, that journal, I don't know whether it's recognized by what they call the government, by the school in terms of what they call performance-based research funding. So in New Zealand, universities are given funding based on the, I guess, the research rating, I guess something like Utara in that sense. And they do have like, different areas, and also what are the papers that they're contributing to that particular area. So in this case, for HCI, you already know that places like Interact, Kai, and then there are a few others as well. I think the British Computers, or the BCS, the British Computer Society, I think also has a conference as well. Those are the conferences that they are there. Have a look at the type of papers they are able to actually accept, and then that would also give you an idea in terms of what are the things that can actually be done. What are the things, a lot of times, sometimes it's also, sending the paper to see whether there's any luck. This is many years ago, about 9 or 10 years ago. We did publish a paper on this approach in terms of building technology, the eToro one. But then contribution was more on the methodology in terms of how we are working with the community, with a methodology, basically with the participatory action research approach incorporated into the methodology. So depending on the area that you're wanting to work on, you might, before you really start, have a look at also like, the papers that are already published, in conferences or journals as well. This question, I would suggest also afterwards, ask Tarek, because he has been quite prolific in the writing as well. And I do know that he works closely with, with Heike, Winchester Theophilus, and I guess a plug as well. So there is also a highly rated conference, the participatory PDC, participatory
design conference.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that conference is coming to Cebu in Sarawak in 2024. So I know that conference does a lot of these community type projects as well. So, trying to find those locations. There you go. Tarek, you are here. So,
yeah.
So in this case, you already got a possible conference that you can actually publish. Find out what are the papers that are accepted in those type of areas, but also talk to people like Tarek and all that. He's in Sarawak. So dekat saja.
Thank you, Dr. Alvin. I guess our time is up. Thank you very much for your sharing, Dr. Alvin. Okay. This is very crucial because we now, in the era of pentahelix, we see we have heard about triple helix, and now they are going to pentahelix. So this is very good avenue for us all to embark, work with Indigenous, work with the society, and so on and so forth, and also the industry, government, and so on. So thank you very much, Dr. Alvin. So I thank you very much, and thank you for all questions by participants. So I give the floor back to the MC. Thank you very much.